All right, let's talk about Mars. And I don't just mean the red planet floating out there in space. In Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, Mars represents something way more personal. It's that raw, unfiltered drive inside of you to just act. It's the force that pushes us forward. So let's dive in and see what that really means.
This quote from Robert Svoboda, man, it just nails it. He calls it goal-directed energy. See, it's not just about, being angry or aggressive. It's the spark that gets you out of bed in the morning to go after something you want. It's the fire that fuels your ambition. It's the very principle of doing.
So, to make sense of this, the ancient texts came up with this incredible image for this energy, the cosmic general. Just picture that. Mars is the general of your inner world. It's the part of you that makes a plan, takes charge, and sees it through. It's your ambition, your grit, your sheer will to make things happen.
Okay, and this is maybe the most important thing to get about Mars. This intense energy, it's totally neutral. Think about it like fire, right? Fire can keep you warm and cook your food, or it can burn the whole house down. When it's channeled well, Mars gives us courage, strength, and passion. But when that same energy gets out of control, well, that's when you see anger, conflict, and just pure irritability.
So, the big question is, how do you know which one you're dealing with? Is your inner general this noble hero or a reckless warmonger? Well, that's where the science part of Jyotish comes in. You see, a planet's influence isn't just some vague idea. Its power is actually calculated based on a really specific set of ancient rules.
And believe me, this isn't just some new age guesswork. What you're looking at here, this is a page from a foundational text, the Brihat Parasara Hora Sastra. I mean, this is basically the Bible of Vedic astrology. It lays out this incredibly detailed, almost mathematical system for figuring out how strong a planet is, which just shows you how structured this whole thing really is.
Okay, so what are some of these rules? How does Mars get its power? Well, it gets a major boost in certain situations. For example, it gets what's called directional strength, or digbala, when it's high in the sky, which lines up with the 10th house of career and public life. It's like the general is sitting in the command tower, with a perfect view of the battlefield. It's also stronger at night, in its home signs of Aries and Scorpio, and it's at its absolute peak of power when it's exalted in Capricorn.
And here's the key takeaway about strength. It isn't about being good or bad. A strong Mars just means the planet has the raw power to do its job without anything getting in its way. But a weak Mars? That's when the energy gets stuck. It can turn into frustration, or this pent-up anger, or maybe you just can't find your courage when you really, really need it. All right, so we know how strong Mars is. Now, where does it actually show up in your life? Well, think of your birth chart like a house with 12 different rooms. Each room represents a different area of your life, your personality, your home, your career, your relationships, the whole shebang. Where Mars is located tells you which room it's going to be most active in. So let's start with the most personal room of all, the first house. This is you. It's your body, your personality, your basic identity. So if you put the planet of action right there on the front door, it's going to have a huge effect. The classical texts say that Mars in the first house can make someone really courageous, a real pioneer, but it can also make them a bit impatient, maybe even irritable. And check this out, this is just brilliant. The ancients actually saw how Mars seemed to wander, erratically across the night sky, and they translated that celestial behavior straight into a human personality trait. How cool is that? Okay, so now let's take our fiery cosmic general and move him into a totally different part of the house, the fourth house. This is the cozy, private part of your life. It's your home, your family, your sense of inner peace and happiness. So, what do you think happens when you put a warrior in the house of peace and quiet? Yeah, it can get a little tense. It's literally like having a soldier on high alert, in full battle gear, just standing in your living room. Not exactly relaxing, right? The texts say this placement can stir things up at home because the nature of Mars is to compete and confront, not to kick back and feel content. Now, besides where it's placed, Mars also has a natural, let's call it a jurisdiction over certain areas of life. It's the Karaka, or the go-to planet, for the third house, which is all about courage and siblings, and the sixth house, which deals with conflicts and enemies. Makes perfect sense, right? Courage and conflict are Mars's bread and butter. Okay, but here's the thing. Planets almost never work in isolation. They team up with other planets, creating these special combinations called yogas, and these yogas can create some very specific, very powerful effects in a person's life.
So, I have a question for you. When you think of Mars teaming up with other energies, what's the most famous and maybe even the most feared Martian combination of them all?
You might have heard of it. It's called Kuja Dosha, or Mangal Dosha. This is the big one that traditionally is said to create some major headaches in a marriage. We're talking discord, unhappiness, you name it. It's the classic example of Mars's disruptive side stirring up trouble in the very sensitive area of relationships.
So how does it happen? The rule itself is actually super specific. This dosha, or flaw, happens if Mars is in one of these 5 key houses. And why those 5 houses specifically? Well, think about it. They all hit the core of a relationship. The first house is you, the 4th is your home life, the 7th is your partner, the 8th is your shared life together, and the 12th is the house of loss. Put a planet of conflict in any of those spots, and you can see why it's considered a challenge.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom with Mars combinations. For instance, when Mars, the planet of action, joins up with the emotional moon, you get what's called Chandra Mangala Yoga, and that can be amazing for generating wealth. You're mixing action with emotion, drive with public appeal. It can be a recipe for success. But, and there's always a but with Mars, if that combination gets messed up by other influences, that same powerful drive can get twisted into something much more ruthless.
All right, so let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway here? When you strip everything else away, all the rules and houses and combinations, what is Mars really? It's just pure, unfiltered action.
It's the energy inside all of us that fights for what we believe in, that builds the world we want to live in, and that cuts through any obstacle that gets in our way. It's your inner engineer, your cosmic surgeon, the tireless soldier inside you, all rolled into one powerful force.
And that brings us right back to where we started. That Martian energy inside you isn't good or bad. It just is. How it expresses itself, well, that's everything. Its strength, where it is in your chart, what other planets it's talking to, all of that determines whether your inner general is your greatest champion or your biggest troublemaker.
So I want to leave you with this thought. The ancient texts don't judge this energy. They just see it for what it is, the pure, unfiltered drive to do something. So the real question isn't if you have it, it's how you're using it. Where in your life does this energy drive you?